As I've been doing these mouthpiece comparison videos, I've been asking myself what I'm looking for in a mouthpiece and why. And I've been finding myself gravitating towards 3 different mouthpieces for different reasons. So I'm going to play some Bach today to try to compare them and see what I hear back on listen. The first one is this Doug Elliot mouthpiece, XT 104 rim, XTG cup, and G8 shank that Doug was so nice to send to me a few weeks back. I've been playing on it for about 2 weeks now and feeling out my impressions of it. The second mouthpiece is the daily driver I was using right before that, which is this Laskey-59D from the old days of production where Scott was still hand making mouthpieces. So although it says 59D on it, I have no idea if it's actually 25.9 millimeters because he just kind of made whatever mouthpieces he wanted for people. But this has always felt really good to me. It felt like a good mix between orchestral and solo playing, and I used it for about a year. And then for more orchestral style playing, I've been gravitating towards this Laskey-Alessi 60 Symphonic from the new lineup that he has. I keep calling it Laskey-Alessi. That's not really the thing. So Laskey-Alessi 60 Symphonic. The heaviest of the mouthpieces, the biggest cup on it, and I think that there's a corresponding change to the sound because of that. For today's comparison, I'm going to use one of Ralph Sauer's arrangements of the Bach Goldberg Variations, which he did a lovely job with. This is Ralph Sauer's Practice with Bach Volume 4, where he arranged the entire Goldberg Variations for solo trombone etudes, and this is number 9. I'm going to play the first half of it, starting with the Doug Elliot mouthpiece. Yeah, so a little on the sloppy side in the middle, but I'm trying to get an overall impression of what the sound concept is, more than I'm worried about like perfection right now. And I also want to see if, that clarity and core of the sound really comes through differently. Because I always feel like there's a lot of core in this sound, but it's hard to know what to listen for from behind the trombone. So these videos that I'm making where I have at least one type of microphone in front of me helps me get some ideas of what an audience might be hearing. I'm probably going to go through and use this and set up my real microphone and see what the difference is there, because I feel like the cell phone videos, and I think we should listen to this a lot when we listen to Instagram cell phone videos, they do a bit of auto compression on the sound. Like I notice very often like my breathing might be as loud or louder than the trombone notes, and that's just not what happens in real life. So kind of that auto gain and that auto compression that cell phone videos gives us a little bit of a flawed view of what the mouthpieces sound like. But since we make so much content on cell phones now and we just use this as a tool, it's useful to know what I'm sounding like in that context. Alright, so with that said, I'm going to try the Laskey-59D and see what it does to the sound in this cell phone recording and see what happens. Could be that I've spent more time on it. It felt slightly easier to play, but it felt like I was missing a little bit of the core and the clarity to the sound at the same time. Again, that's my feedback from behind the trombone, which is always different than the feedback from in front of the trombone. And finally, I'm going to try the Laskey-Alessi 60 Symphonic. This always feels like if I want to play in an orchestra and I want a really big sound that projects through the hall and has like a lot of just block to it, that this would be a really lovely mouthpiece because it still gives me some room for interpretation and flexibility. One reason I chose to play Bach on today's video is that Bach is very vulnerable to play, especially solo Bach. Like, if something goes wrong, you can hear it instantly. And trying to hear like what my sound is doing and whether or not the mental concept is matching the concept coming out of my horn is really important for me to do from an outside perspective as well. So here's Bach on the Alessi mouthpiece. In the first half of that first half, well, it feels really good to be doing just the notes going down and just really getting into that kind of trigger range and that low range. When I get to the second part with the higher 16th notes, it still feels like there's a lovely connection between the notes, but that it might not be necessarily the sound and the sparkle I'm looking for up there. I'm gonna isolate each one of those sections for a few bars and see if I can also just like clean it up a little bit, but I'm going to start my way on the big mouthpiece and move to the small mouthpiece. Here's the first 4 bars. Alright, let's see how that sound concept carries over. Very often I go from small to big, but sometimes going from big to small you can bring some things back into the playing that weren't there before. I So then that was the Laskey 59D, and finally the same thing on the Doug Elliot mouthpiece, kind of working from big to small. I felt like I had a little bit of a tricky time getting as much sound in the low, but I mean, it makes sense if it's like a much bigger rim and deeper, not a deeper cup, but just a larger cup overall with more mass, that it would sound that way. Alright, I'm going to try about 4 measures of the higher 16th section, and again going from big to small, so this is the Laskey-Alessi mouthpiece. I'm going to try that one more time for clarity and see if I could do more on that without having to really fight the mouthpiece. Alright, so it is possible. It could just be switching between mouthpieces rapidly gives you a different feedback and so affects kind of the accuracy a little bit. But again, for the overall sound concept, let's do the same thing on the Laskey 59D. So it felt much better to kind of ping up the octave and start to come down. But then when I was looking for the connection between the notes at the end of each measure, it felt a little trickier. Again, I'm going to try this twice to see if the second time around gives me a little bit more like face adaptation time. Yeah, second time through is usually better than the first, that makes sense. But that'll give me a better snapshot of what I'm working with here. Ah, now we have both cats in the video. This is Pocky, and up there is Luke. These are the 2 kitty cats. I think they think it's almost feeding time. So let me quick get through this excerpt again on the Doug Elliot mouthpiece and compare them one final time. Again, the pinging up to the higher octave felt really nice, but the connections near the end of each bar still felt like they need to be worked out a little bit. Let's see if the second time is the charm again. Yeah, that last one was for me. But I could definitely feel like the more I play through it, the more, easy the technique of it becomes. Switching between mouthpieces on like technical and vulnerable work such as Bach, sometimes that little like last 1 or 2% of adaptation really makes a difference when it's like so crystal clear what you need to be playing and there's no room for like just letting sound take over. Alright, so that was a quick demonstration on the 3 mouthpieces I'm looking at now. I'm really curious to listen back and see what I hear when I'm playing this on like my computer speakers and kind of going through all the different versions of what's happening. And I'd love to hear what you all think also. Thanks.